Our final speaker for today is an amazing denim designer. Like, we're so lucky to have him. Like, I remember back in 2000, and it could have been 2004 or 2005, I was in Bread and Butter Show, and I'd working for Edwin at the time, and everyone was talking about this brand called PRPS, the hottest brand of that time. I remember there's that one bread and butter, and it goes, Mohsin, make sure you go and have a look at that collection. And it was like, and it was pretty astonishing. And we've got like DONWAN with us here. Oh my God, hello, sir. Thank you so much. And he was actually a couple of weeks ago. He was on a really amazing webinar with Amy as well, which is worth checking out on her YouTube channel. Welcome, sir. It's a complete pleasure. We've got you for a good 20, 30 minutes. I've got some questions for
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. The presentations were amazing. Looking forward to this. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, I'm sorry. I'm so excited. I went straight into it. So DONWAN's career is astonishing, and I'm sure some of the questions that I'm going to ask you, we're going to go into that as well. So, but yeah, let's go straight into it. What career path did you take at college and at university?
I have a bachelor's of fine arts at Virginia Commonwealth University with a specialty in fashion design. And I originally wanted to be a comic book artist, and that didn't work out for me, thank God. But after that, I moved to New York, and my first job was at Robert Stock. And I swear I had the worst job on the planet. I was designing men's silk underwear for about 3 years, which was, so it was like a specialty store project for like Lord & Taylor, Bloomingdale's. These are just local chain stores in the US. Wow. And I ended up taking on a few other jobs during that time with Donna Kieran, working under Linda Beauchamp and Alan Scott, doing the first DKNY line. And after that, I started working for Joseph Aboud, designing a menswear collection for him. And these are probably names that your audience probably is not familiar with in the US, but DKNY was huge. And because it was like a very New York athleisure line. And today it's become a bit of a nostalgic line, but it's always nice to see. And after that, I was recruited to go to Nike, and I moved to Portland, Oregon from New York, mind you, and which was a huge cultural difference. And I worked in Portland, Oregon for about a year before they gave me a huge promotion to go live in Asia and head up the organized team sports. So my career started to really blossom, and I started to get far more exposure, and I started to get huge assignments, gigantic assignments. And I had to design the uniforms for the World Cup for Nike. So all the teams that were sponsored by Nike, I had to design the uniforms for. I did uniforms for the Super League. I did uniforms for the Rugby World Cup. And I did uniforms for the Olympics. I did design the Olympic uniforms for Nike. So I had these huge projects. So it was kind of opening up my mind, obviously, and going to the stadiums and seeing the games and seeing thousands of people and items that I wore. You start to feel confident. You started to feel, I could do this. And you decide after a number of years and traveling and spending so much time overseas, living in Japan, living in Hong Kong and Singapore, designing for all these teams, you decide, oh, you know what, I could do this myself. Because you see from start to finish your development and your design that, I can build my own company. So I decided to leave, which my parents thought I was crazy back then because I had this huge platform, was making all this money. But I really had a desire to have my own clothing company. I didn't know in what respect to have my own clothing company, but I ended up moving to the US and back to the US, I should say. And I started a clothing company called Academics. Yeah. And it was a streetwear brand. And it wasn't not necessarily the style that I personally had living overseas, but that was what the trend was at that particular time. And it was a huge, amazing success, a $130 million company in no time at all. And I realized a lot of the department stores were gravitating toward my denim. And I realized that spending so much time in the wash facilities in Asia, spending so much time there, seeing how the process works and seeing the machine development, that I had a bit of a knack for it. And so long and behold, that became my thing. And I focused more on that year after year after year, working at a lot of subcontract wash facilities in Asia. And after a number of years of having the company, I got a bit bored. So I decided to create what I would consider to be a very bespoke denim brand
Yeah.
and make it and manufacture it out of Kojima, Japan.
Yeah.
Spending so much time in Osaka, I saw the Tokyo 5, and it was my first time seeing these guys and seeing, these Japanese brands that were built on American heritage that were non-existent in the US at that time, but I was so enamored with it because, as an American, to see someone build companies based off your own culture and something that you take for granted, I was like, wow, I think I could do a better job of this myself. So I said, let me do this myself. So I hunted down whom I consider at that time to be some of the best manufacturers at that time, which was Hoa. And so I introduced myself to Hoa, and I remember the first time I introduced myself being this low, they had not dealt with any American company whatsoever, mind you. Like, keep this in mind. This was in 2002. I mean,
wow,
I must have been the first American at their establishment. I mean, this is long before Selvage was popular, Heritage was popular. This is way ahead of its time. And I told them I wanted to build this brand using Japanese selvage and this and that and so forth. And they were like, the long meeting was about an hour, and it was a huge long table. Maybe I think it was like 12 people at the table. I think there were and I'm not even sure if they understood half of what I was saying because they didn't speak much English, but I had a translator, and they said no. So I was like, oh my God. So I go back to the US with my tail between my legs. I go back, I swear, I think it was about a year later, trying to request again to do this. I set up the same meeting, less people this time, and they said yes. So the persistence worked. So I launched this brand, and my only competition with this type of high-end product at the time was Rogan, who also had a phenomenal jean line. And I think it was being made out of sites out of Kentucky. So that was at a time where resin was quite like the new thing, the 3D resin. But unfortunately, it was tearing on him. I saw customers wearing it, but it was always being torn. Resin was really quite crisp at that time. And I was taking more of an organic role, heavily influenced by vintage. So it hit the market and it blew up. It really blew up. There wasn't anything like it at that particular time in the market. Now selvage is come and gone, and it's passe.
Fake selvage. Like, there's skin selvage. It's like selvage has lost its meaning. There's people designing.
Unfortunately, so I'm a purist, and that's what I wear on the daily. But it's unfortunate right now. It's I don't want to speak on the trends of today, but it was very cutting edge, the brand PRPS, from a washing standpoint, the characterization, the style, the look. I tried to play on a lot of cues that I saw over the years, spending so much time in Japan, but in my own American street style savvy way, and it worked, and then it was like every celebrity under the sun was wearing it, especially, and when it really took off was when Brad Pitt was wearing it on the cover of In Touch magazine when he was, I forgot who he was dating at the time, and it was just skyrocketed.
Amazing. Let's just go to the next question. Who inspired you in your early part of your career?
My mother, I would definitely say, was my first inspiration. She was very much an entrepreneur, and she and I would work the flea markets, and we would sew. And so I had learned to sew on a serge machine and a single stitch machine. Oh my God, when I was in my teens. And so we were always sewing things together, sewing up pants, sewing up shirts as what we would call granimal hookups. So matching tops and bottoms. And so we would sew the things throughout the week, after school, and then we would go out in our truck and we would go to the flea markets all over the East Coast of the US, and we would sell it to the market. So craftsmanship and sewing was very much a part of my lifestyle at a very early age. But the fact that I could create something, I could perceive, she would teach me how to perceive the audience and what the audience would expect from us, create it, and then go to the flea market and then sell it. So that was in my blood at a very early age. And that definitely is a big part of my inspiration today.
Wow. Okay. My mom also is a tailor. She's one of these people that she can look at someone and cut something just with scissors and get a pattern made without any choice. One of those old school.
That was
Wow.
fine. But that generation, right? You know, they sewed everything of theirs. They cut the pattern. And back then they had these things called Butterick patterns back then. And she would mock it up, change it, and she would show me how to utilize the pattern. But that was that generation.
Yeah, amazing. Can you pinpoint moments in your career that have influenced you, how you create your brands? Obviously, you said that you were very much about making stuff from the beginning. So I guess that helps you with your artisan approach, right?
Yes, yes. You know, I'm a very much a street watcher. I love sitting on the street and watching people. You know, this is long before social media and Instagram and Facebook platforms, but I've always been the type of person to sit and watch. You know, one of the great things about Nike working overseas for generating product for these various teams is you learn to watch the sport and watch the people, because you had to generate something. I didn't know anything about Aussie Football League. I didn't know anything about rugby league or rugby union. I'm American, you know, it's either basketball or football.
Right.
And so to have to go there and have to study, you learn to be patient, watch, listen, and then figure out, interview the players. And that's pretty much the same sort of protocol I took with generating my companies, is sit back, watch, and listen. Today, we have these easy access social media platforms that help us generate ideas, but there's nothing better than sitting and watching people and how they change things, like sitting at a park and how they wear things. And that's, to me, the biggest inspiration.
Cool, cool. Now you just like me. How important is like teaching? I know you're involved in many different institutions, and you're one of your favorite aspects. I know you teach washing treatments. I remember seeing, I've been a blog about you teaching at many different schools. So you've been actively an educator as well. How
Yeah,
important?
yeah, I love teaching. I was teaching a course before COVID on denim history. It was called Denimology. And one of the things that I loved the most, and it was that I love to do, is how to communicate to the factory. You would be amazed how that is something that people take for granted, how to communicate to factory, especially if to understand that English is not their first language, and it's the predominant language that's spoken when when you're dealing with a factory, you know, unless you're in Italy, of course. But outside, the rest of the world is predominantly English. And it's how to communicate your general ideas to the factory, how to communicate, how to gain the type wash inspiration or outcome, how to communicate it, how to communicate it through your tech pack, how to communicate through your merchandiser, who has to then relay that information to your technician. Just how to be in your demeanor and the words you choose, because you have to be, you can't use slang. You have to be very direct with them because they only understand one segment of the language. And so spending time, I would take the classes, and it didn't matter. Sometimes I would take them to a factory in Europe, in Portugal, or I would take them to a factory in Colombia, just wherever I had relationships, and I had relationships all over the world. And just sitting there talking to them about how to gain the look and character of the wash, and how to exemplify that to the customer or to the technician. And I think that's what I like doing the most, more than anything else. Obviously, I'm showing them, introducing them to the different machines that they've never seen before, which, you know, they're always impressed with. But so it changes it changes and teaches them how to reconnect with the tech pack so that they can gain the max out of it.
Wow. No, I myself, I teach denim history, and I mentor loads of students every year across 3 different colleges. Even at Ravensbourne, I'm the main denim like tutor, but we have a project that we do with like genealogy every season. So the students do get to go to Spain and get to laser finish their collections in a sustainable way. So it's really pretty cool. So how important is it? How important is storytelling each season? So your master at illustration, I remember seeing some of your jackets where you hand drew, you know, there's loads of examples of your drawing skills.
That's a hobby, by the way. And I never have time for it because, you know, I have a new company now, and I still do a lot of consultation for various companies. And so I don't have a lot of free time as I used to be able to do that. But, you know, I told my wife the other day, oh, I want to do a couple of new shirts. And I'm like, I'm still waiting to get around to doing it. But as far as communication is very key. You have to have some sort of a direction at the beginning of the offset of your collection, because that is the only way that your customer can connect to you. They don't deal with you personally through email or text. So how you create the direction of your line through color, through texture, through techniques, through wash characterization, that's how you connect to your customer. And so it drives them to want to purchase it season after season, because you're giving them a different story in that look and character of your garment. So I think it's super important. I don't think it's necessarily just always about a lookbook. I think a lot of times, it's communicating to the people on the floor that you're selling to in the retail, and communicating who you are, what your angle is, what your approach is to denim. I think that's super important, because they then translate that communication to the customer who may be a fan of yours. I was dropping off some new production to a store yesterday, and there happened to be a young kid in the store who happened to have one of my jeans from a prior season.
Nice.
And he could see on the box that I was carrying into the store, the logo. And he saw the logo and he was just so eager, and he was a bit hesitant, but he came up to me and he's like, "Oh, I'm a huge fan. I've been buying your product online." And he's like, "Oh, I like this fit. When are you going to bring this fit back?" And, that connection, he's going to remember that, for the next couple of years, that communication,
Oh, yeah, sure.
And that's the kind of stuff that I love.
Okay, cool. What's the process you go through to create your lookbooks and marketing? Obviously, Instagram's been massive for all of us in the last,
Yeah,
for the
that's
last
actually a
9
new
years.
platform for me. Well, the thing is, this particular current collection, Art Meets Chaos, that I designed for, that's mine, I don't do necessarily a full-on lookbook. I do stylized shots. And for every season that I will design for, I'll do a different kind of lighting and style of photography that highlights the wash characterization of the jean. And that's pretty much as far as I go with regards to that. I'm not the type of company that's going to put, jeans on a model who's shirtless, standing in front of an old car with the scenic desert in the background. That's just not my thing. I leave that to the guesses of the world. And, I like to focus on just the beauty of the wash with the white serene background or black background with the,
You let the products do the talking, basically, right? You let the
Yes,
products do the talking.
yes.
Cool. You're one of the most prominent denim designers sort of in the US, but obviously you must have encountered obstacles in your early part of your career. Anything you would like to, for the students?
Yeah,
Just
I try not, yes, I see more of them more like roadblocks, not necessarily obstacles. I do believe that, my mom used to have this saying, cream rises to the top. And I'm a firm believer that hard work beats anybody who's not putting in the work. And so, I felt typecasted in the beginning when I first started PRPS. I felt that, being a Black designer, that was going to get typecasted and only be looked at as a streetwear brand, urban streetwear brand. So I felt like I had to do the same thing Bob Marley did, or the same thing that Jimi Hendrix did, was go to the UK and launch your line, because I felt that talent is actually looked highly upon. Doesn't matter the color that's surrounded or connected to the brand. And so I did that. I decided to go to UK and launch the brand. And I remember when I first launched it, getting into Duffer St. George and Liberties of London and all the other great stores, my first season out the bat. And once it took off there, then the US market wanted it, because I couldn't do it in the US because I was being typecasted, and that, during Amy's podcast with the other minority designers, we call them the gatekeepers. And there is, unfortunately, this gatekeeping store buyer that wants to typecast you and put you in these buckets based on your nationality, unfortunately. And so when I launched PRPS, I definitely had to take that route of going to the UK, then bringing it back to the US. And it was accepted, lo and behold.
I did a similar thing with Engerime. Obviously, in the UK, the stuff I was doing was very complicated and very artisan. I went to Japan, I presented my collection there. Then it was UK buyers going to Japan going, "Oh, there's this amazing brand we've just not known about." And I was like, I went to you last season and you weren't even interested. And
Exactly.
Isn't
it amazing how the world works?
It's funny, a bit annoying, but it's fun how it works. Okay, next.
It didn't stop you. You had to go around.
I carried on. For me, it's like, okay, they'll find me when they find me. You've got a great archive. I know you do, because I've seen some of the pictures of it. Is there any favorite piece?
It's bananas.
It's bananas.
I mean, I've been collecting for years.
I've seen everything behind your desk, even your book collection. Oh my God, is there any particular piece that you like? If there was
I have so much, but I did grab a couple of pieces just to show, I mean, like I have the 60s Levi's that's really beautiful. Wow. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
stuff like this is what I love, you know, because it's the character, it's the repair, you know, that I'm inspired by each season. And this gives me it helps me make things very realistic. And for those more heritage guys, I have this really late 1800s underheel
Look at
pants.
that.
I don't know if you-
Underhill, yeah, I'm familiar Underhill. It's
I mean, and you can see that it's a single pocket, which tells you that, you know, the sort of the year placement of the garments.
no
You know,
belt loop before 1922, like also already. So yeah.
yes, yes. And this is another piece. I just grabbed a few pieces. This one's really like, but this is a very early Levi's piece. Again, it has the watch pocket. It has a single back pocket, you know.
That's So Miles Johnson can probably date it for us. But yeah, another early pre-1920s piece for sure. Yeah.
Another one that I really love is the Lippincott. I don't know if you're familiar with Lippincotts.
I'm not familiar with Lippincotts, no.
Yeah, you know, it's the small names that are rare that I love more than anything else, you know? And these are just a few pieces. I can keep going on, but
no, I've got stuff like that as well. We could have just a presentation just about samples. It'd be amazing. Okay, let's move.
But my favorite piece before we go, because it's a full-on pant, uncut, untorn, is a pair of Mountaineer.
Wow.
Which is super rare.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
It's no belt loops. Again, you know, coin pocket. But I could go on and on. It's just
We should do a podcast just about that. You and a couple of our friends.
I would love that. That would be so awesome, right?
We'll do that. Okay. Is there any brands that you would love to collaborate with? There must be some brands that you've always said. Like I've always said, if Levi's came knocking, I would stop everything. You know, is there a brand that?
No, I have been very blessed in my life that I've had some pretty amazing opportunities. And I mean, I was approached by HD Lee, a number of years ago to do their 125th collection. And it was such a huge honor because, you know, I teach denim history also as well at my course at VCU. And to have them knock on your door and be like, we'd like for you to represent us and, you know, do a reinterpreted variation of our collection for Europe. And it was the chance of a lifetime to be allowed to go to VF and go through their archive, redesign it and do it in Japan. I mean, like it was changed to fit a little bit, you know, it was just, I'm very fortunate. Levi's obviously would be the next kind of guy I would do, but.
I'm lucky enough to work for Levi's Japan and I've done stuff for Levi's Europe, but, you know, not as you know, if it came knocking, I would stop it all. A couple more questions and then it's a quick fire round. What sustainable solutions have you been looking at for your new line?
You know, there's a couple of things, you know, when I'm dealing with the factory that I always appreciate is the G2 technology from Genealogia, you know, and any of the digitalization processes that help eliminate water. But I know how difficult it is for a lot of these factories out of China and Colombia and Portugal and other parts of the world in Japan to kind of get rid of the carbon emissions. You know, they're trying their best to. Water, I think, has become something that they're able to manage by reducing by 65%. But the carbon emissions is one of the things that's the hurdle because it's such a cheap way to run the machines. But yes, I'm very familiar and conscientious when I'm working with the machines. A balance of the waterless process I try to do with some of the ozone techniques to try to gain some of the characterization of the genes.
Okay, nice. A quick fire round now. Cotton or polyester thread?
Cotton core wrapped.
Okay, it was a trick question. 1 cm selvage or 0.6 cm selvage on the side seam?
I like it the smaller the better. That's just my personal.
Yeah, I'm the same. I like it super narrow. Tencel or hemp?
Hemp.
Green cast or red cast?
You know, I'm gonna go with, I saw that and I'm gonna go with the green cast because it reminds me of some of the early Amiski type stuff, you know, with that green tint to it.
Yeah, for sure. I know exactly what you mean. This is a silly question. Right hand twirl or left hand twirl?
That's like saying, do I like Levi or do I like Lee? It's just like I like both.
Sorry, I just want to get a crazy answer from you. That's a no answer then. Tapered or straight?
I'm sorry?
Tapered or straight fit?
I'm a straight fit guy. I don't like tapered. My customer likes taper. I'm straight.
Yeah. I think you like this question. Osaka or Tokyo?
Oh my God. I would have to say Osaka because that was my first exposure to American selvage, going to
Nice.
some of those small little shops in the American Village. And if anybody has, if any guy, you know, a girl out there that wants to go and get really exposed to Japanese denim, the American Village is where to go. It's so much history. It's so cool. It's just, it was a eye-opening for me.
And you went at a time when there was no English, there was no maps
Nothing.
on your phone. You probably had a booklet where you had circled things out and you're finding, yeah.
Hey, you can, there's so many vintage magazines that you could find. It was, for me, there was no internet. You have to understand, there was no internet for me. Internet did not exist when I was doing this. So I had gone at a time where it was word of mouth. Like, you hear something and somebody mentions something, and so you go to this street and you're looking around, and then you go into these stores and you're like, wow, this is amazing.
I interviewed like Jason Denham like 2 days ago as well, and he has a very similar story. He goes, I went at a time where there was no McDonald's, no nothing, so you had to really immerse yourself in that culture. You've been amazing. Let's just check some questions. What year did you design the Olympic and World Cup like uniforms? So someone's asking. Can you remember?
It was the time we did the gold shoe. I'm trying to think of I only know it by the name of the athletes.
Right. It was a good 15 odd years ago, maybe 20 years ago, right? Something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I remember the gold shoe. I remember and I did white dots on the uniform. I can't remember the year. I'm 50 years old now, so I'm a little bit old.
No worries. How can we get like DONWAN's like details? You can follow him on Instagram. I'm sure he's very kind enough. He'll probably like reply a message. Someone, I think a student.
It's that either Art Meets Chaos or King Crash.
Nice, yeah, nice. Thank you, like DONWAN. Beautiful wash conversations, the beginning of storytelling washes. Okay, right. And is there something like a podcast where we can hear all these presentations again? Everything is being recorded. Everything will be online next week on Transformers like YouTube. Don't worry. We record everything and we edit.